The next big thing we would see with the Undertaker is the tease of the higher power, and that he's going to start a feud with Vince McMahon himself. He's actually going to kidnap Stephanie, strap her to the symbol. They're going to do a black wedding, and then Austin saves Undertaker. And eventually, Vince McMahon reveals himself to be the higher power. I don't know that that makes sense then or now. There's been lots of rumor and innuendo that the higher power, at least once upon a time, was considered, hey, what if we used Christopher Daniels in that role? In 1999, that would have been crazy. I mean, we know Christopher Daniels had quite a run on the independents and certainly in Ring of Honor and TNA and Impact. And now, of course, talent relations with AEW. But did you ever hear that maybe he was considered to be the higher power for this angle?
I read that. I read that here a while back, Conrad, and I was a little bit shocked to read it, quite honestly, because I had not really heard that particular concept being played out. Not saying Christopher Daniels couldn't do it. He's a veteran, and he would have looked at that as the biggest break of his career if it had occurred.
Yeah.
Without question. So that's a lot. He's come a long way from Ring of Honor, and his successes there, by becoming the higher power in WWE. It just, at the end of the day, it just didn't seem like it was a fit. And not knocking Christopher Daniels, he does a great job at AEW, and he's a very talented worker, and he does a great job as an agent. He does nice finish work, but it just didn't seem like it was the right fit. It didn't seem like Christopher Daniels at that point in time was over enough to pull off this role, and for whatever reason, it just never came to fruition.
The corporate ministry is going to rule the WWF, and that leads to the Undertaker defeating Steve Austin at Over the Edge in 1999 for the WWF title. I think this is actually when he wins the Smoking Skull Championship. He drops it back to Austin a month later. It's one of the highest rated segments in Raw is War history. You always knew these guys were money. I mean, they've had a handful of matches together in 96 and 97. But by 98, when they headlined at Madison Square Garden, SummerSlam Highway to Hell, it set all kinds of records. So it makes sense to go back to it on pay-per-view in 1999. More of the same. Austin and Undertaker just had tremendous chemistry together, did they not?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They had, I thought they had great chemistry. I'm not so sure the two talents did. I know they both had great respect for each other. And they were both big time players in the whole big picture scenario in WWE at that time. But it was interesting times, again, the trust that the company had in Taker to pull this thing off, knowing full well that Taker and Austin should be a great match. It should sell tickets. It should sell pay-per-views, and it did all those things. But I never was a big believer that their individual chemistry with each other was a layup sell. It seemed like it was just hard to get to that point, even though the fans loved it.
That's it.
Those guys, they had great matches. Connie, they told good stories. They were unselfish, but it's just one of those deals where sometimes you see a scenario that's that's the interesting picture there. You got on the right, you got Mark Yaten at bell ringer, Howard Finkel, God bless him. And then you move down to our table. There's the King and I doing our thing at ringside. So, but it was a joy to be able to call these matches, even though I knew both guys. They just, it was tough for them. It was tough for them to replicate what had been amazing greatness, amazing grace, amazing greatness. And they delivered for the fans, but I don't know if they delivered well for each other.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the match quality was never, it wasn't getting 5 stars in the Observer or anything like that. But it does feel like anytime they were on screen together, fans were buying a ticket, fans were tuning in. So, maybe it's not going to be Okada, Bryan Danielson, but what it will do is get a whole bunch of people to change the channel and watch it.
Right.
Once that ministry angle has sort of run its course and maybe it starts to peter out a bit, we see the Undertaker start teaming with Big Show. But all these injuries that Undertaker has run up all these years start to catch up with him, and he winds up on the shelf for like 9 months. And as you might imagine, the character evolves yet again. He returns in May of 2000 at the pay per view Judgment Day, Louisville, Kentucky, one of the bigger moments in WWE history. Here comes not just the Undertaker, but the American Badass. And this is a totally different presentation from anything we've seen from the Undertaker, but probably more of the real life Mark Calloway. What'd you think of the American Badass? Did it feel like a risk at the time?
Not a big risk because Taker had great confidence that he was going down the right trail. And of course, we had not been there before. Many of us just had to we had to trust Taker, his judgment, and his, his basic skill set of in this scenario. So, but you just, again, because he had reinvented himself so many times, I never had a lack of confidence that Taker was going to be successful in this particular characterization as well. He just was Taker just he had a great feel for his character. He had a great feel for his gimmick, and he had a great feel for how to get the best match out of somebody. Uh, and it put a lot of pressure on the opponents because Taker was so well thought of. That Clint Eastwood character commanded a lot of respect. So you don't want to go out there and half-ass it. You want to go out there and change your game to where Taker can accentuate what's going on between the two. And so it was just one of those. Again, I know I said this a lot today, but when the guy's got a track record of success, the best thing you can do as an administrator is trust him. And that's what I was doing. I was trusting, and I love the look of the gimmick, the motorcycle, the shades, the headband. We're seeing that on our YouTube, and it just was again. It takes a lot of courage for a top guy, and Taker was a top guy, no doubt. It takes a lot of courage to change your gimmick, change your TV persona. A lot of guys wouldn't do it. They couldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. So, but he was bold and he had confidence in his ability to spot talents and to have matches with people that heretofore he may not have had the opportunity to work with.